It started with something that wasn't supposed to be heard at all. A whisper, a private moment, a late-night call that by all accounts was meant to stay between two people, but somehow it didn't. It leaked, and the moment it touched the internet, everything spiraled out of control within minutes. At first, it sounded unreal, almost like something designed purely for attention. A rumor, a piece of gossip crafted to stir drama around one of hip-hop's most talked-about couples, Offset and Cardi B. But then came the line that changed everything. "Please, I need help right now." That's what insiders claim Offset said during a desperate phone call that was never meant to become public. In the beginning, most fans dismissed it. It felt exaggerated, fake, just another viral moment engineered to get clicks. But the situation didn't fade. Instead, it escalated. Screenshots began circulating, then voice note leaks, then reposts from major gossip pages. Within hours, what started as a whisper turned into a full-blown crisis, dominating timelines across every major platform. According to unverified reports, Offset allegedly reached out to Cardi B asking for urgent financial help during what sources describe as a serious personal breakdown behind the scenes. And what made the situation even more intense wasn't just the request, it was the alleged response. She didn't say no, but she didn't say yes either. According to one widely shared claim, Cardi B remained silent. And in the context of everything unfolding, that silence became louder than any response. Within hours, social media erupted. Fans picked sides, hashtags trended, theories spread faster than facts. Some believed Offset was facing financial collapse. Others argued the situation was being exaggerated beyond recognition. And many started asking a deeper question. What if this wasn't just about money? Because just as the conversation reached peak intensity, a second leak appeared online, and it shifted everything. It was a single message, one screenshot, but the implication behind it was enough to shake even longtime fans. If the leak was real, then this wasn't just about financial struggle. It was about betrayal. And suddenly, the narrative changed. But to understand why this situation exploded the way it did, you have to look beyond the leaks themselves. Because this story didn't begin with a phone call. It began years earlier, with a relationship that had always lived under pressure. Offset and Cardi B were never just a couple. They were a phenomenon. From the moment they came together, their relationship existed in full public view. Every high, every low, every argument, every reconciliation, it all played out in front of millions. Their story felt intense from the beginning. They met at a time when both were rising fast. Cardi B was transitioning from internet personality to global superstar, while Offset was already established as a major force in hip-hop through his work with Migos. Their chemistry was undeniable. But so was the chaos. There were rumors of arguments during tour, allegations of trust issues, moments where the pressure of fame seemed to bleed into their personal lives. And yet, no matter what happened, they always found their way back to each other. Breakups turned into reconciliations. Scandals turned into new chapters. Fans started calling them toxic but unstoppable. But behind the viral moments and social media jokes, insiders painted a more complicated picture. According to unverified reports from people allegedly close to their circle, financial disagreements began surfacing over time, not publicly, but privately behind closed doors. Despite his success, Offset was rumored to be dealing with financial pressure, not necessarily failure, but the kind of strain that comes with maintaining a high-profile lifestyle, investments, obligations, and expectations that never slow down. At the same time, Cardi B's career was reaching new heights. Major endorsements, record-breaking streams, global brand deals. She wasn't just successful, she was becoming one of the most powerful women in music. And according to speculation, that shift may have quietly changed the dynamic between them. Not in a dramatic public way, but in subtle private moments. Conversations about money, responsibility, support. Not necessarily explosive arguments, but tension, distance, a slow shift that fans couldn't see but insiders claimed was growing over time. Meanwhile, both were dealing with something even bigger: pressure. Offset continued navigating public scrutiny, past controversies, and the weight of his reputation. Cardi B was balancing fame, motherhood, and the relentless demand to stay on top in an industry that never pauses. From the outside, everything looked perfect: red carpets, luxury lifestyles, social media highlights. But behind the scenes, the reality may have been very different. Communication, according to rumors, became inconsistent. Emotions became hard to manage. And trust, once the foundation of everything, started to feel fragile. Then came the turning point. Not a public moment, not a headline, but something private, something that insiders claim changed everything. According to emerging reports, Offset had been dealing with something far more serious than anyone realized. Financial strain, emotional pressure, or something deeper entirely. No one knows for certain. But what makes the story more complicated is the suggestion that Cardi B may have already been aware of it, that she may have known more than she ever publicly revealed. Still, the truth remains buried under conflicting claims, deleted posts, and silence from both sides. And then came the leak. It didn't explode immediately. It started small. A blurry screenshot posted from a burner account, easy to ignore, easy to dismiss. At first, almost no one paid attention. It looked fake, like countless other celebrity leaks that appear online every day and disappear just as quickly. But this one didn't disappear. Within an hour, it was picked up by major gossip pages, then reposted, then amplified, and suddenly it was everywhere. The alleged message showed Offset in a state fans had never seen before. Not confident, not composed, not in control, but desperate. The wording felt raw, unfiltered, urgent, the kind of message that didn't feel crafted for an audience. It felt real. And that's what made it dangerous. Because the internet doesn't just react to information, it dissects it. Every word was analyzed. Every emoji was questioned. Every timestamp was examined. People tried to reconstruct the moment, to understand what could have led to something like this. But what made it truly explosive wasn't just the message itself. It was what allegedly came next. According to circulating claims, there was a response, or lack of one, that shifted everything. Silence. Not confirmation. Not denial. Just silence. And in the world of social media, silence is never neutral. It gets interpreted, reimagined, turned into meaning. Some saw it as restraint. Others saw it as distance. And some saw it as the clearest answer of all. That something had changed. At this point, the story stopped being just about a leak. It became about everything surrounding it. Their history, their struggles, their dynamic. Fans weren't just reacting, they were connecting dots. Old interviews resurfaced. Past arguments were re-examined. Moments that once seemed minor were now being treated like clues. And as more people joined the conversation, the narrative became bigger and more unstable. Because no one actually knew the full truth. And that's where things stand now. A leaked message, unverified claims, a relationship already under pressure, and a public trying to piece together a story from fragments. Is Offset really in trouble? Was the message real? Is this about money or something deeper? Right now, there are no clear answers. Only theories, only speculation, only a story that keeps evolving with every new post, every new interpretation, and every new detail that surfaces. And the most unsettling part, this might only be the beginning. Because if more information comes out, if more leaks surface, everything people think they know right now could change instantly. In situations like this, the truth doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in pieces, and the next piece might change everything. At exactly 7 minutes and 43 seconds into the unfolding chaos, everything changed again. A second leak appeared. This time it wasn't a screenshot. It wasn't text that could be easily faked or edited. It was something more unsettling, a voice note, short, distorted, emotional. And according to fans who claimed they heard it before it disappeared, it sounded like Offset speaking in a way the public had never heard before. Not confident, not composed, not in control, but vulnerable. The voice, as described by listeners, carried weight, talk of stress, financial pressure, and being overwhelmed by circumstances that fans had never even imagined. It didn't sound like a performance. It sounded real, too real. And that's what made it dangerous. Because once audio enters the conversation, everything feels more believable. Everything feels closer to the truth. But before anyone could fully process what they had just heard, the story took another turn. A second anonymous account surfaced. And this time, it claimed to have something even bigger. A response, allegedly from Cardi B. But it wasn't what people expected. There was no anger, no confrontation, no explosive reaction that fans had grown used to seeing in their public history. Instead, the message, if real, showed hesitation, a pause, and then something that felt more like concern than conflict. And that single shift changed the emotional tone of the entire situation. Because now, this didn't look like a fight. It looked like something heavier, something more complicated. Then, just as both leaks began spreading, across every platform, something strange happened. They started disappearing. Posts were deleted. Accounts were suspended. Links stopped working. Within minutes, content that had already gone viral began vanishing as if it had never existed at all. But on the internet, deletion doesn't erase a story. It amplifies it. Screenshots of the leaks were reposted. Audio clips were re-uploaded. Threads multiplied. And suddenly, the mystery wasn't just about what was said. It was about why it was being removed. That's when the theories began. One group of fans believed Offset was being targeted, exposed unfairly through manipulated leaks designed to damage his image. Another group argued that Cardi B was being dragged into something she never wanted to be public in the first place. But a third group introduced a much darker idea. What if neither of them was fully in control? What if someone else was shaping the narrative? Then came the post that changed everything. A cryptic message from a supposed insider account. This isn't just about money. This is about who's controlling the story behind the scenes. That one sentence shifted the entire conversation. Suddenly, the focus wasn't on a relationship problem anymore. It was on something bigger. Control, influence, power. The idea that what the public was seeing might not be the full story, but a carefully filtered version of it. And once that idea took hold, there was no going back. Fans began digging. Old interviews resurfaced. Past comments were reanalyzed. Moments where both Offset and Cardi had hinted, without ever fully explaining, that not everything in their lives was as public as it seemed. And now, those moments were being viewed through a completely different lens. Not as random comments, but as clues. Then came another twist. A new screenshot surfaced online. This time, it didn't show just two people. It showed a third, an unknown account, someone who had never been mentioned publicly, someone who appeared to be mediating messages between Offset and Cardi B. And that revelation raised a chilling question. If there was a third person involved in these conversations, then who was actually controlling what was being said? And more importantly, what else hadn't been revealed yet? By the time this third leak hit the internet, the situation was completely out of control. What started as a single message had turned into a chain reaction. Screenshots, voice notes, anonymous posts, each one spreading faster than anyone could track. And this time, the focus wasn't just on Offset. It pulled Cardi B deeper into the storm. Another screenshot appeared. A group conversation. Multiple usernames. Multiple voices. And one thread that immediately caught everyone's attention. Because within that thread, there were mentions of arrangements, temporary support, and urgent financial handling. No one could confirm if it was real. But that didn't matter anymore. The internet had already decided. Within minutes, hashtags exploded. Fans split into two major sides. One defended Offset, calling him overwhelmed, pressured, misunderstood. They pointed to the emotional tone of the leaks and argued that no one truly understood what he might be dealing with behind the scenes. The other side pushed back hard. They claimed the situation confirmed long-standing rumors about financial instability and poor decisions. And just like that, the story became a battle. Not of facts, but of interpretation. Then came the biggest shift yet. A viral thread from an account claiming ties to industry management circles. It posted a single statement. This is not a personal collapse. This is a controlled narrative spill. And just like that, everything changed again. According to this thread, the situation wasn't unfolding naturally. It suggested something far more calculated. That leaks were being timed, filtered, released in stages. That certain details were being shown, while others were being hidden. And if that was true, it meant one thing. The public wasn't watching a situation unfold. They were being shown a version of it. And once again, Cardi B's name became central. Because the same thread made another claim. Cardi was advised not to respond directly. Everything is being filtered. Now fans started questioning everything. Her silence, her absence, her lack of reaction. Was it her choice? Or was it being controlled? Then came the moment that sent everything into chaos. A new leak. Not a screenshot. Not text. But audio. Low quality, distorted. But enough for people to believe they recognized Cardi B's voice. In the clip, a woman, allegedly Cardi, says, "This isn't how it's supposed to go. Why is this even out?" That one line hit like a shockwave. Because it suggested awareness, surprise, and possibly loss of control. But then something else happened. Another voice entered the clip. A male voice. Unidentified. Unconfirmed. And according to those who heard it, he said, "It already started, we can't stop it now." That was the moment everything shifted. This wasn't just drama anymore. It felt like something unraveling. Something bigger than a relationship. Something involving control, timing, and decisions being made behind closed doors. And just like before, the clip disappeared. Deleted. Removed. Gone. But it was too late. Re-uploads flooded every platform. Reaction videos exploded. Breakdowns appeared within minutes. And with every replay, more questions emerged. Who was the second voice? Why did Cardi sound surprised? And what exactly had already started? Then came the most unsettling theory of all. A viral post claimed this entire situation wasn't accidental. It wasn't just a leak. It was a planned exposure. A controlled release of information designed to test reactions, shift narratives, or distract from something bigger. And just when people thought it couldn't get more intense, a final post appeared, visible for less than 5 minutes, then deleted. It read, "This is only phase 1. After that, something strange happened. Silence. A pause. Not empty, but intentional. The kind of silence that feels like something is about to happen next." By now, the internet wasn't just reacting. It was erupting. Every platform turned into a battlefield. On X, hashtags changed by the minute. Offset explained, "Leave Cardi out of this. What's going on behind the scenes?" No one could keep up. Fans argued nonstop. One side claimed Offset was being targeted, that the disappearing posts proved someone was controlling the narrative. The other side insisted the leaks were too detailed, too emotional to be fake. That something real had to be happening. And in the middle of all this, silence from both Offset and Cardi B. And in celebrity culture, silence is never just silence. It becomes a statement, a question, a signal. Entertainment pages pushed constant updates, new insider claims, unverified reports, allegations of legal teams monitoring the situation. Nothing confirmed, but everything believed. Even within the industry, reactions were mixed. Some described it as a personal situation spiraling out of control. Others hinted that this kind of exposure, this kind of breakdown, was becoming more common under extreme pressure. But one anonymous message stood out above the rest. If even half of this is true, it's way bigger than just relationship drama. And that's where things stand now. A story that started with a whisper has turned into something no one fully understands. And the most unsettling part, it still feels like it's not over. A message began circulating from an anonymous account. This feels like something people won't understand until later. That one word, later, immediately changed the tone of the entire conversation. Because now, the story wasn't just about what had already happened. It was about what hadn't been revealed yet. Meanwhile, the internet reached a breaking point. Fan communities didn't just debate anymore, they split completely. Old interviews of Offset and Cardi B resurfaced at scale. Lyrics that once felt like ordinary storytelling were now being dissected like coded messages. Even old Instagram captions, simple, harmless posts, were suddenly being interpreted as hidden signals. Moments that once felt normal no longer felt normal. Red carpet smiles, analyzed, backstage clips, replayed frame by frame, live stream jokes, reinterpreted as possible foreshadowing. The internet had transformed into something else entirely. A detective agency with no structure, no leadership, and no rules. Then, just when it felt like the situation couldn't get more intense, a new rumor dropped, and it changed everything again. This one was different. It didn't focus on what was leaked. It questioned why it was leaked. A growing number of posts began suggesting that one of the original messages may have been deliberately planted. Not by fans, not by hackers, but by someone inside the situation itself. That idea spread like wildfire. Because if even one piece of the story had been planted intentionally, then what about the rest? Was the entire narrative real? Or was it something constructed, something shaped, something designed to be seen a certain way? And right as that suspicion reached its peak, a final cryptic post appeared on a burner account. It stayed up for only seconds before disappearing, but not before thousands saw it. It read, "You're watching the reaction, not the cause." That line hit differently, because it didn't just challenge the story. It challenged everything people thought they understood about it. Now the question wasn't just what was happening between Offset and Cardi B. It was something much bigger. Who was deciding what the world got to see? Just when the internet thought it had mapped out the entire situation, everything collapsed again. Not because of a new theory, but because of a new leak. This time, it came from an account no one had ever noticed before. No followers, no hist, no previous posts. Just one upload. A document-style screenshot. Structured, time-stamped, detailed. At first, people dismissed it as fake. But then they noticed something that changed the tone instantly. The document didn't describe what everyone thought it would. It didn't talk about a desperate request for money. It didn't describe emotional chaos. Instead, it framed the situation in a completely different way. According to the alleged document, what was happening wasn't a personal breakdown. It was a financial restructuring discussion. And not just between two people, but involving multiple parties connected to both of their careers. That single shift changed everything. Because suddenly, the narrative wasn't about desperation anymore. It was about coordination. Then came the second shock within the same document. A single line. Cold, formal, and deeply unsettling. All communications must be routed through approved channels until resolution. That sentence triggered panic across social media, because it implied something most people hadn't even considered before. Control, structure, systems operating behind the scenes, systems that weren't visible to the public, and systems that might be shaping what information was allowed to surface and what wasn't. But the most disturbing detail wasn't the language. It was a name, or rather part of one. A third identifier appeared in the document. Not Offset, not Cardi B, someone else, blacked out in some versions, partially visible in others. That single detail sparked a new wave of speculation. Was it a manager, a lawyer, a label executive, a brand partner, or someone completely unknown? No one could agree, and the lack of agreement only made the situation more chaotic. Then came another twist. A new audio clip surfaced just minutes after the document went viral. And this one felt different, clearer, more controlled. Listeners claimed it sounded like Offset again, but not the same voice from the earlier leak. This voice was calmer, slower, almost exhausted. The message was short, just one sentence. This isn't how it was supposed to come out. And then silence. No context, no explanation, just that one line. Within minutes, the clip disappeared from multiple platforms. Removed, deleted, gone. But just like before, it didn't matter. It had already spread. And this time, something changed in the reaction. People weren't arguing anymore about who was right or wrong. They were questioning something deeper. Had the entire story been misunderstood from the beginning? Then, before anyone could process that shift, another post appeared. Short, vague, but powerful. The situation is being reset behind the scenes. No one knew what it meant, but it felt final. like something was being cleaned up, or shut down, or rewritten. And then things got even stranger. Posts began disappearing faster than before. Entire threads vanished. Comments were erased. Accounts went silent. Even major gossip pages, ones that had been posting non-stop, suddenly stopped. Not gradually. Instantly. It felt coordinated, like someone had flipped a switch. And in that silence, something unsettling settled over the internet. Because for the first time since the story began, there was no noise, no new leaks, no new theories, just absence, until one final message appeared, from the same anonymous account that had started it all. It read, "Phase 1 is over." But this time, there was something new. A second line appeared beneath it. And that's what changed everything again. Because it suggested something people hadn't fully considered until that moment. That everything they had seen so far was only the beginning. At this point, the situation no longer felt like a normal celebrity controversy. It didn't feel like gossip. It didn't feel like drama. It felt like something unfolding in stages. Controlled, measured, intentional. The leaks, the deletions, the silence, the reappearances, all of it started to look less like chaos and more like a pattern. And that realization created a new kind of tension. Not loud, not explosive, but quiet, unsettling. Because now the question wasn't just, what happened? It was, what are we not being shown? And maybe even more importantly, what comes next? Because if phase 1 is over, then that means something else is coming. And whatever that is, might change everything people think they understand about this situation. Right now, there are no clear answers. Only fragments, only interpretations, only a story that keeps shifting every time it feels like it's about to settle. And that's what makes it so gripping. Because in moments like this, the truth doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in pieces. And sometimes, the most important piece is the one that hasn't been revealed yet. It ended with a message that didn't explain anything, yet somehow made everything feel even more complicated. Phase 2 begins when you stop looking. And just like that, the account vanished. No history, no follow-up, no clarification, just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't calm a situation but intensifies it. Because when something disappears that suddenly, people don't move on. They start asking why. At that point, the conversation was no longer just about Offset or Cardi B. It had grown into something much bigger. What started as a supposed private leak had transformed into a full-scale internet phenomenon. One driven less by facts and more by interpretation, emotion, and curiosity. And that's where things became truly unpredictable. Because now, there were multiple versions of the same story existing at once. One group believed everything was exactly what it looked like on the surface. A private moment between two high-profile individuals that somehow leaked and spiraled out of control. In their eyes, the situation was tragic but simple, privacy breached, emotions exposed, and the internet doing what it always does, amplifying everything beyond recognition. Another group saw it very differently. To them, the timing, the sequence of leaks, and the way content kept appearing and disappearing didn't feel random at all. It felt structured, controlled, like pieces of information were being released in stages, almost as if someone was guiding the narrative from behind the scenes. And then there was a third perspective, arguably the most unsettling one. Some people began to question whether the entire situation had been misunderstood from the very beginning. Not fake, not entirely real, but something in between. A mix of truth, distortion, and selective exposure that created a version of reality the public could see, while hiding everything else underneath. That uncertainty became the driving force behind everything that followed. Because once people stop trusting the surface of a story, they start digging deeper. And that's exactly what happened. Old interviews resurfaced. Past social media posts were reanalyzed. Even casual moments, laughs during live streams, red carpet interactions, offhand comments, were suddenly being treated like clues. Fans weren't just watching anymore. They were investigating. But the more they searched, the less clear things became. Instead of answers, they found contradictions. Some leaks suggested desperation. Others suggested coordination. Some pointed toward emotional stress, while others hinted at structured communication happening behind closed doors. And every time a new piece of content appeared, it didn't resolve anything. It just added another layer. That's what made this situation different from typical celebrity drama. It didn't move in a straight line. It looped, shifted, and redefined itself in real time. And then there was the silence. No direct confirmation, no clear denial, no detailed explanation from either side, just absence. And in internet culture, silence doesn't create space, it creates speculation. People started asking questions that didn't have easy answers. Was this really a private situation that spiraled out of control? Was it something more complex, involving multiple people behind the scenes? Or was the internet itself shaping the story into something bigger than it ever was? The truth is, no one could say for certain. And that's exactly why the story kept growing. Because uncertainty is powerful. It keeps people engaged. It keeps conversations alive. It turns a single moment into an ongoing narrative that evolves with every new interpretation. By now, the situation had completely outgrown its original form. It wasn't just about a message anymore. It was about perception, about how quickly information spreads, how easily it changes, and how difficult it becomes to separate reality from assumption, once millions of people start adding their own perspectives into the mix. And maybe that's the most important part of all this. Not whether every leak was real, not whether every theory was accurate, but how the story itself transformed. A private moment, real or not, became public. A public moment became a debate. And that debate became something much larger than the people at the center of it. So now the real question is just what happened? What are we actually looking at? Are we watching a real situation unfold in fragments? Or are we watching the internet build a story piece by piece, filling in gaps with assumptions, emotions, and speculation? Because at this point, both possibilities exist at the same time. And until something concrete is confirmed, they will continue to exist side by side. That's why the conversation isn't slowing down. If anything, it's still building. People are still debating, still analyzing, still waiting for anything that might finally bring clarity. But clarity in situations like this doesn't always arrive quickly. Sometimes it comes late, and sometimes it never comes at all. Which brings everything back to that final message. Phase 2 begins when you stop looking. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just another anonymous post designed to provoke curiosity. Or maybe it reflects something deeper about how stories like this work in the digital age. Because the moment people stop paying attention, the narrative shifts again. Quietly, out of view. And by the time it returns, it's no longer the same story. So whether this was ever just about Offset and Cardi B, or something larger hidden behind layers of noise and interpretation, one thing is clear. This story isn't finished. And whatever comes next, whether it's confirmation, denial, or something completely unexpected, it won't arrive all at once. It will come in pieces, just like everything before it.